What's up, everybody? Welcome to a live show here. C2C CFB Underdog show. Not in the mood to get playful and make jokes about the title of our broadcast, but here on a Monday afternoon to chat the games that are coming up this week. I mean, Underdog has essentially every game this week is out, right? And specifically the playoff games, we see them up. Ethan, we get a game tomorrow night. We've kind of touched on West Virginia and Memphis. So maybe we start with them real quick and then hit the playoffs. Maybe. What do you think?
On here, you hear that too?
I don't. What do you say?
Let's. Here we go. I think we're good now.
Yeah, I think you at the very beginning you were gone, but I thought you might have been muted. But yeah, so
okay.
West Virginia, Memphis. How you feeling?
Dope. Yeah. So West Virginia, Memphis. I think we've got a tale of two motivations. And we talked about that a little bit last week of where we wanted to try and target. I think Memphis is just going to be a little bit more motivated than West Virginia. Obviously, you've got coaching staff change with West Virginia. Rich Rod coming in. He's not a part of the staff yet, but you'd assume that he's paying attention and plugged in a little bit here through the practices. So it'll be interesting to see. Do they kind of abandon the mentality of what this offense has been for this year and try and, slant a little bit more towards what Rich Rod will want to see? Or is this still going to be, entirely this previous staff's offense? I do believe the running back coach is the interim head coach for West Virginia. So that's always interesting to me to see how that factors in. You'd think maybe Donaldson and Jaheim White get a little bit more run in that case, but I also believe that they want to send Garrett Green off on a positive note. So maybe they get a little bit more passing there. But what do you think overall for this game? Do you think that Memphis has more motivation than West Virginia, like I do, or do you think it's going to be pretty moot?
I think it's interesting because you would think Memphis would be upset about how their season played out.
Yeah.
Right. Like they were a team that many thought would be that Boise State G5 participant in the playoff. Not the case.
Yeah.
But I think they're too old to not show up and try to compete and play well. And right. Seth Hennigan is one of the greatest Memphis quarterbacks of all time. He's not going to go out without a bang. He's in, and I would imagine the whole team, right? Like Mario Anderson, that's a guy that never, that didn't get a lot of opportunity at South Carolina. And it's all right, well, this is a big game for him. Big game for all these guys. Rock Taylor, Devere Blakency. These aren't guys that just can phone it in and expect to be drafted high if they go pro.
Yeah,
I think they'll show up. The interesting part here for West Virginia is kind of what you say, with the running back coach, what does that mean? I would imagine the offense stays pretty similar. Maybe slants towards running it a little bit more, but not by much. I mean, at the end of the day, Garrett Green is Garrett Green, right? You can't really I think the running back coach knows what he's got in that. But they are down a couple of receivers. Bray, who hasn't been playing really all season. And then Traylon Ray, one of the other guys that is was one of the, top 2 or 3 receivers. So this Hudson Clement line is really close to what we have projection wise. I don't think I would go over, but if there's one player I think on West Virginia that can go over, it's him because he's a little bit of a big play threat. He's been pretty successful. UCF, Baylor, he's gone over that number, and he's had some games where he gets a lot of targets. So, do you think he would be the guy I would go over or higher if I had to choose one?
That's interesting. I think earlier this week they had a reception line for him. They did. They had 3.5. And so I had kind of been hitting the lower a little bit on him, just because, I do think that we're going to get a little bit more of a run heavy approach. It's interesting though. I did take a look. Both of these teams are 119th and 120th in passing yardage given up. So the defenses seem like they, should give quite a bit to the passing game. So I do see, a route for Hudson Clement to do well against a team that's struggled defending the pass. I think, knowing that what do you think about the 209.5 on passing yards for Garrett Green? Do you think that that's something that you are staying away from, or?
I think higher on both the quarterbacks is a good play. I mean, if you look at what Memphis has done recently defensively, 307, 246, 324, and 317 through the air. Last 4 games. Now, Tulane's was a little bit of a soft, 317 because they got a bunch of garbage time. But, you get 324 to UAB. You get 246 to Rice. These are comparable, if not, worse offenses than what we'll see with Garrett Green. And that 209.5 isn't that big of a number. That seems to be kind of that number where you're kind of a quarterback. That's where your number is between 198 and 210, basically. But yeah, I think it's fine. I think the higher there is interesting. If you like his wheels, you could combine them and do the combination of pass plus rush and give yourself a little bit of some leeway. Maybe he has a bigger running day, and then it just helps you. Doesn't need as much on through the air, but yeah. So Garrett Green interception is straight up higher, lower. You could do it for no issues.
That's tempting.
Let's talk Western Kentucky. So Velcamp's playing. They've come out and said that Velcamp is going to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Man, we see that line at 229.5 number is real low. And Ethan just left me here. Him and his connection struggling. So yeah, I think Velcamp 229.5 is interesting. The problem here is we don't know Easton Messer. What is Easton Messer doing? Is he going to be playing? We don't know. Welcome back, Ethan. It's that Clemson shirt you got on.
It must be, man.
Causing disruption.
Clunky.
I was just talking about how we don't know if Easton Messer is going to be playing.
Right.
Mox thinks no. I don't know. If Velcamp plays, I don't know why he wouldn't. But it's all player by player, and it's all he could be 1 foot out the door, ready, trying to find his next spot and not practicing. So that one's hard to say. So I think I would avoid receiver numbers until I hear any news on that. Because if you were to go higher on a KD Hutchinson or what have you, or Keshawn Johnson, and Messer ends up playing, then you're a little bit of trouble.
Who do you have straight up in this game?
This is tough because James Madison is playing that Billy Atkins, and he's not really any good.
Yeah.
I think I'd go in Western Kentucky to cover because aren't they a touchdown underdog?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
I want to say they're a touchdown underdog. Let's see.
I kind of lean James Madison straight up.
They're 6.5 point underdogs, so people definitely like James Madison. But I don't know. I haven't watched a ton of James Madison, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I'm interested. Both of these defenses defend the pass pretty well. I think we see that, though, with the numbers already included. They're definitely baked in decent pass defenses. So I don't think that this is going to be a game where Western Kentucky is able to just fling it around like they would like. But that does lead me to Elijah Young. I'm torn here on receiving because I kind of like his receiving option here at 21.5 and going higher on that. We see the last 3 games. We had -9 in the championship game against Jacksonville State. Previous week against Jacksonville State had 78 yards, and then previous game at Liberty had 26 yards. 21.5 seems nice, especially if the defense for James Madison is able to clamp down against the pass. Might lead to more dump offs. So I like that one. That's probably the only one that I'm excited about for this game.
Yeah, we have him at 27 receiving yards, so I think that's completely valid. He's hard to kind of project in terms of rushing because he's starting to see an uptick, but they've used multiple guys in the past, so it's what are we going to see? It's kind of fluctuated. But if you're going to hit it, I think maybe the 21.5 higher is the way to go if you want a little bit of Elijah Young action.
Yeah.
But this is big news, so I would pay attention as much as you can on this Messer stuff. If he doesn't play, we might be seeing this in warm-ups, right? He might not be out there, and then if that happens, we could take a quick look. Some of these lines are low, Matheson is low. I mean, Dalvin Smith, remember his bowl game last year? He had 3 touchdowns, 90 yards.
And I will say, Sleeper isn't quite as quick to pull the trigger on some of these players being involved. last week when we saw Gio and Jamal Pritchett were declared out, I was still able to get in, up to an hour after that news broke.
And
get some web overs. So definitely keep an eye on that. I think, as always, and never more important than in bowl games, watch the news. It's very beneficial for you.
Yeah, so small sample. The last 2 weeks, Dalvin Smith 6 targets, Katie Hutchinson 9, Matheson 7, Noah Myers 8. So I would consider all those guys in play to go higher if you see Myers had a long touchdown to call back with the OPI
last week. Yeah,
but I think all those guys you could consider going higher on if we hear the Messer news. If we hear that he's playing, then I don't think any of those numbers are worth touching. But I think if he's out, I think these are too low.
Yeah, Noah Myers. I don't know. I kind of like that, even if Messer's in, but definitely.
I think he's irrelevant. Messer's irrelevant to him for sure, because as a tight end, you don't have to worry about snaps.
Exactly.
But Cal UNLV is interesting in that we don't have anything up for Cal, and that's because there's quarterback uncertainty. Have you seen this stuff on CJ Harris?
No, I haven't.
So apparently Chandler Rogers is still hurt, so he might not be playing. So now it sounds like it's CJ Harris and I think a freshman that are kind of like 50-50 on who's going to get the start.
That's former Ohio quarterback.
I mean, how could you forget him? Yeah.
Bobcat. Okay.
Yeah. He that's a situation where that pass game is going to be rough if it's him. He was pretty rough with Ohio, as we all remember. On the UNLV side of things here, Greg Burrell, I think he's in the portal, isn't he? Greg Burrell?
Yeah, I think I've seen that name.
He is. So really it's Jade Thomas, Kylan James going to be heading up the running back room. That 54.5 though for Jade Thomas is pretty low.
Yeah.
I've been liking going lower on him. That's too low though to touch, I think.
Do you think Ricky White plays?
I think so. I mean, we'll know. We're not going to miss that for sure.
Yeah.
Like they'll hit us with the news of if he's playing or not. I would say yes. I think he plays.
It feels like if he was going to bail, he would have bailed already.
I feel like it too. And the other thing too is like, I don't know. He's not like that high of a prospect. He's not Luther Burden. He's not like one of these high-end receivers. Like, I think he needs as much help as he can get.
That's fair. I like anything. It's just injury concern that I feel that it's not that he has everything put together, but like, I don't know. It's also weird with these like early bowl games because leaving early doesn't really give you that much of a jump on like combine prep.
Yeah.
It's before Christmas. Right. Like you're not getting any real benefit there. So I do see that side of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. He doesn't really gain anything by it. And as we're talking, it's these lines are moving up on him. I think I would avoid Ricky White. Honestly, this game to me is a pretty pure avoid. They're coming off that tough loss. None of this stuff is interesting. If you get Cal stuff that pops up and you see some receivers maybe at higher numbers, then I would be interested. But I don't know. These UNLV lines feel pretty accurate.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Hajime Lake Williams has a decent path to success, but am I remembering this right? That Cal's defense is actually kind of decent.
I want to say it's kind of decent. Yeah, I can take a quick look.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking at crazy numbers. I do know that completion number looked like it may have been pulled 15 and a half. That would be one that I'd be interested in just because I think that they're going to have some success there. His passing yard number 179 and a half. I'm okay with it going higher on that.
I think that's the only one I would touch. That's just so low. And in his final game, he'll be amped up. It's his first ever bowl game, right?
Yeah,
Cal defense has given up 300, 141, 323, and 274 in their last 4 games. Wake Forest, Syracuse, Stanford, SMU. All hovering essentially around 7 yards per attempt, 7.5 yards per attempt.
Not great.
Not the best defense, not the worst defense. They had some really good games to start the year.
Yeah.
Against real teams like Auburn, San Diego State, Florida State, and then they kind of hit a little bit of the conference games that got them tripped up a little bit. Shocker of the century. We love Riley Leonard passing overs.
Yeah, I can see that coming.
Why do I do this myself? I think I'm like 2-40 on white quarterback props. I think if I just avoid those, I think I make more money next year.
See, what I really want is I want a Curtis Rourke rushing number is what I want, because you got to think that they're just going to unload on him, pressure him all day.
Oh, you're looking to go lower on him.
I want lower on some negative. Yeah.
Yeah.
That to me sounds
the old who's the Carson Strong over under 0.5 rushing yards.
Absolutely.
Or like negative. Wasn't there like a negative 1.5 rushing yards or something like that?
Yeah, it was like negative 1.5. Yeah.
Good Lord. Everything else though feels pretty on point. They have all these different receivers that get the usage across the board. I like this Mitchell Evans hire though. He's getting a ton of action and usage. We have him like mid-30s receiving yards. So
yeah,
I like it. I mean, they just haven't really been challenged to throw the football.
Yeah.
And now this is a playoff game. You'd imagine they would have to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see anything drastic standing in the way of Notre Dame. I'm also, on brand. Mitch Jeter, higher than 3.5 extra points made. I feel like that's free money. Assuming that's the right kicker.
If it's not, then it's just going to get a...
Fun fact, they also had the wrong South Alabama kicker last...
They did. I saw that, yeah. But he had already committed to someone somewhere in the portal, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you think 4 touchdowns for Notre Dame? That seems pretty on par.
This depends on how you feel the Indiana defense is. It's gonna be close. Hence why the hot tamale joint.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fairly close. If I had to pick one, yeah, I'd give me the over, the higher. But me, I'm not playing around with these. He's not a tight end in the Big Ten, so hard pass. We did get a question from Bobby in the chat, so thank you. Rashard Smith, over or higher, lower, 18.5 receiving yards. Looks like he likes the higher. What do you think, Rashard Smith?
I don't love it, to be honest. I get it because Rashard Smith, week in, week out, seems like a lock to get that pass game involvement. My concern is just how quick Penn State is to the edge. They don't really shy away from overcommitting to stop that outside, screens, dump offs, things like that. I could see a world where he is held below that for sure.
I'd like a reception number. He's the one I think I would rather the reception number.
If I could get
Jaden Blue later, we might talk about give me the reception number of 1.5.
Yeah, I'd even go over on 2.5. I think they'll try it, but
here's why I think Bobby might be onto something. We all are in agreement. We think Penn State wins, right?
Yeah.
I think we get garbage time checkdowns to Rashard Smith, just like that Clemson game in the ACC championship game. I think that's very, very possible. And so I think that could be where, Penn State, in that situation, up 2 touchdowns with 5 minutes left, they're going to, do the old keep them in bounds and keep them in front of you. And that's perfect for him to just come out of the backfield and sit in, 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage and get a couple dump downs.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think that's a path that I could see happening. Are you really gonna? That's putting your chips in on Penn State's offense though to have a big enough lead ahead of time to make that.
Yeah, well, their star best player on offense, Bo Perbula, is in the portal now. So what will they possibly do?
Hate it. Whatever though.
He knows something that we don't. He knows that Drew Aller is coming back, right?
Oh yeah, he knew that, and he knew that he can probably get in with Rich Rod at West Virginia.
So. You think he goes Rich Rod? That feels like a good fit.
Yeah, it does. Feels real nice. West Virginia and Syracuse are where I'd put my money. But
okay, it's the same region. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Nothing else here for me. I don't mess with Penn State players anymore after I've been done dirty by them.
That's fair. I will say I really like Warren. It's a healthy number, the 68.5, but plus they're not trying to feed him for artificial Heisman votes anymore. But
award votes.
He has a really good size advantage over the SMU linebackers. So I could see him busting a long one.
I mean, he's going to get 10 targets.
Yep.
That's one I would mess with, the higher on Tyler Warren. I feel like Underdog in some of these places, they set the line, they find the lowest line of the last, or maybe the middle line of the last 3 to 4 games, and then they just add 0.5 to it and say, hey, here we go.
I could see that.
That's what they did with this Maryland. He went 6 for 68, and so his number is 68.5.
They do have the right kicker in for Penn State, though.
I was going to ask, is that the right guy?
And I kind of like more than 1.5 field goals too. So take that for what.
Yeah, I'm ignoring that. Cade Klubnik, Bobby also asked Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
Over 22 rushing yards on Underdog here. We have 24.5. I'm a little cautious on Clemson's offense against Texas's defense.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that they're just continuously going to be very, very good, even if they haven't necessarily played a great pass offense. But I think that's a tough matchup.
Out of their last 3 games, what do you think their sack percentage is on defense?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, did they get to Stockton all that often?
13.3%. That is good for 4th in the country over the last.
That's huge. Yeah, that's high.
Yeah. So I am not touching the Clemson, or I'm not touching the Klubnik rushing.
Yeah, I can see why you would avoid that. I would avoid that one as well.
If you really think he's going to have some rushing upside, tap that rushing touchdown higher with the 1.6 tamale.
Yeah, well, here's the big thing, right? Is Phil Maffa. Phil Maffa saved my weekend a couple weeks ago when they had lines out for his second half, and he's just so banged up. His shoulders, all sorts of messed up. I will say, if you're looking at like what ways to convince yourself that a higher in the passing game it makes sense for Clemson.
Yeah,
I think they pass the ball more than they have in recent weeks or this season because Jay Haynes, Dabo won't admit it, but I'm fairly sure his knee blew up on that kick return to start the second half in that ACC championship game. So he's out. And then Phil Maffa being banged up. I mean, they slung it around against SMU, and that was with like them leading the entire game. So I could see them throwing it another 40 times like they did their last game.
Who do you think matches up best for Clemson against the Texas secondary?
I cannot lie my way out of that one. I have no idea in terms of. I think obviously, right, Antonio Williams is number 1, and then Wesco's number 2. You know, if I'm going to look at both these guys and say, well, which one I'm going to go higher on? Well, Williams is only 5 yards higher, and to me, he's like the number 1, and he's probably more talented at this current point. So why wouldn't I just go higher on Williams?
Yeah, I am almost of the opinion, though. I mean, we don't have a TJ Moore number out here, but like if we could get TJ Moore like 32.5 or something like that, like that's what I'd be more interested in.
I don't think they do that, but that would be good.
Brenningstool 26.5. I don't think that I'm touching Brenningstool this week. It feels like he has not really shown up at the big games for Clemson. Granted, they haven't had a big game in a bit, but I'm just so hesitant. It really feels like a Texas lockdown situation where they're really going to dial in on the passing game. They don't fear the running game much, I would say.
We talked real briefly on Jaden Blue. The 1.5 receptions, I think, is very, very interesting. Like, I think that one would be one where you go higher. His usage was weird at the end of the season. I would not touch any of the rushing stuff.
Yeah.
But it's inevitable that he's going to get pass game stuff.
And also, though, there is a little bit of trepidation with how much does Texas have to pass in this game against Clemson. So I get why it's where it is, but I do agree that if I'm taking a side, I'm taking higher.
Okay. Final game available: Tennessee, Ohio State. What's your initial lean on here?
I think Ohio State's going to blow up. I think, like, in a good way. I think they're going to dominate Tennessee. I don't think it's going to be close. I really like the over for Egbuka on receiving yards at 53.5 or higher on that. I am tempted here with the Will Howard 234.5. It's always hard with Ohio State. They just have so many ways that they can win. I also am fully on board if you want to take the lower on Nico passing as well.
Nico, man, these numbers are just crazy. If you would have just said like, "Hey, this is how these are what these numbers are going to be," and you'd said that in week 1,
for real, though,
calling some people liars. This is crazy. Squirrel White, 25.5 yards, and I'm like, I don't think I would do that.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I could touch that. I mean,
at that point, 15.5 longest reception, take that instead. But like,
insane. Dante Thornton. Gun to my head, if I had to choose one of these guys, I think I'd go higher on Dante Thornton. He's just such a big play threat, but he has hands like fish. And the only counter to that would be is that these Ohio State DBs are real grabby. I could see him being in a great position to catch a couple 40-yarders, but they just committed defensive pass interference. Yeah, that's the issue there. I think both those, though, the longest reception and the receiving yards higher are interesting. I like the Egbuka call out. I think I like the receptions more at even money, like at that 4.5 higher lower. No down.
Get a little shaky on that because of how well they've been able to spread the ball out. They've seemed like they've been using Tate a little bit more down the stretch.
They have, yeah. Tate's been real impressive. He's come on strong the last couple weeks, last couple games. I just wonder if Egbuka is just such an easy guy to target that they don't feed him a little bit. Just kind of like with Jaden Blue. Like, that's why I wouldn't touch the yards, because I think they create a couple of screenplays for him.
That's fair.
And, I mean, what's the weather going to be like at this game? It's a night game.
In Tennessee?
No. It's at Ohio State.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Columbus weather.
Columbus weather. Let's check it out real quick before we wrap up. So, yeah, I think – cold weather, we could see a shot at a couple easy passes to Egbuka.
29 degrees and windy.
8 p.m. That's going to be real cold. But yeah, so I think there's some options there. Man, it's just kind of crazy to see how low these lines are for these Tennessee players. Brazel at 26.5. I like the over there, the higher there, but
do you have any feeling on Sampson? Like 92.5 seems a little aggressive, I feel like, with the matchup, but I mean, he is the motor to this offense. Like, they're gonna
I think I would go higher only because I could see him running it like 30 times.
That's fair.
I could see them just volume his way to it. Because he's just so good too. Like, he can pop off a big one that it's just so hard to go lower on these guys that can break off a 70-yarder at any time. Like,
do you think there's a defense in the SEC that's better than Ohio State's outside of Texas?
That's a good question. I mean, part of it to me is like, how much was Ohio State challenged this year?
Yeah.
It's not fair to say, well, they gave up a bunch of points in yards to Oregon because it's Oregon, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's take a quick look at the rushing stuff for them.
2.85
yards per carry. Ooh.
Yeah.
That is a tough one. Michigan, though, ran for 4.1.
That's Michigan, though. Like, it's weird rival interconference.
Yeah.
Built to beat one team kind of
thing. These numbers are definitely skewed because, like, if you look at it, like, no one's going to be, like, Akron they killed, Western Michigan they killed, Michigan State they overmanned, they outmatched, Northwestern. Indiana. But to me, Indiana's offense is not really, like, I don't know. I think their pass game is more impressive than their run game. Plus, they are just – Indiana was completely outmatched. Like, I think Notre Dame – like, to your earlier point on the extra points, like, I could see Notre Dame just 35-0 type of thing, unfortunately.
Yeah. 18.5 rushing for Nico. That's kind of interesting as well. Ohio State has a comparable rush or sack percentage to Texas overall on the season. They're actually better on the season, 10.51% on the entire season. Last 3 games, 11.39. So they're about 10th overall in the last 3 games, but they're second overall on the season. So
yeah, and that was with Michigan 0 sacks because Michigan just didn't let them get sacked, get any sacks. So, do you want to pick 2? We haven't done this in a while. You want to pick 2?
I'll pick 2.
Let's pick 2. I'll start.
Okay.
I think this Brazel line is too low. After looking at it, I'm gonna take a quick look at Brazel's usage. I mean, someone's got to hit the higher on this offense.
You want to go 3 each this week for bowls playoffs?
Let's go 3. Yeah, let's go 3. Why not? I'll start with Brazel higher, 26.5 yards.
Okay. I'll go higher on Tyler Warren, 68.5.
I should have taken that from you. I'll do Jaden Blue, higher 1.5 receptions.
Okay. I am gonna go. Who was that one that I got called out earlier? I'm going higher than 21.5 receiving yards for Elijah Young on Wednesday.
It's a good one. And then I'll wrap it up with the tight end, Mitchell Evans, over or higher 28.5 receiving yards.
Okay. And I'll go true to form. Mitch Jeter, higher than 3.5.
Damn it. That's a good one.
And you said Mitchell Evans was your last one?
Yeah, 28.5.
Okay, nope.
Look at that.
All right.
That's pure money.
Tossing something on this too, so hopefully we're 3 for 3.
Yeah, maybe 5.
Yeah.
5 spot. Well, very cool. This has been great. It's been fun to see Underdog have all these different options and games up so early.
For sure.
I think, honestly, these are games that you could do projections and work on in advance. There's a lot of games you can't touch for a while because it just doesn't make any sense to look that deep into actual nitty-gritty numbers. But these playoffs should be fun. I'm hoping for great success, as Borat would say, these playoff games, and hopefully just from an entertainment standpoint, I think we're bound to have some good games.
Yeah, for sure.
So awesome. Well, thanks everybody for checking us out. We'll be back next week for sure, and we'll catch you guys next week. Enjoy the games and happy drafting.